Welcome to News Wrap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. Thank you for tuning in. After providing a few brief updates on various local stories, we'll take a deeper look at the media landscape in Pasadena, which has experienced some pretty stark changes in the past few years. We'll be joined by Andre Coleman, managing editor of Pasadena Now. But first, I want to share with you a story I broke last week. General Motors has purchased an 8-acre property in Northeast Pasadena for $49.5 million. Known as the Sierra, the 3-building, 150,000 square foot campus is located at Rosemead Boulevard and Sierra Madre Villa Avenue. General Motors plans to relocate their West Coast Automotive Advanced Design and Technology Center from North Hollywood to Pasadena next year and invest $71 million into the new location. In related news, a Caltech biotechnology startup has purchased a building in East Pasadena for $72.5 million and plans to relocate its headquarters and lab from Monrovia back to Pasadena. Rumor has it that an Amazon Fresh grocery store will soon open in the old Osh hardware store location in East Pasadena. And Motive Space Systems will move into the former site of Robbins Woodfire BBQ in a $4 million deal. These deals mean Pasadena is attracting major new tenants to the city, which will have a large impact on Pasadena's office market, workforce, and economic outlook. Before we move on, a quick note that the Delta variant of COVID-19 has been confirmed in at least 6 Pasadena residents. The city's weekly infection rate just reached its highest point since early March. It's a reminder that we all still need to be vigilant. Let's turn now to our lightning round of news updates.
Journalists at 11 daily newspapers in Southern California overwhelmingly voted 64-19 to form a new union. The papers are owned by Alden Global Capital and are known as the Southern California News Group, or SCNG. The new union is called the SCNG Guild and represents 140 reporters and other newsroom employees from papers including the Orange County Register, Los Angeles Daily News, and Pasadena Star News. Last month, Alden bought Tribune Publishing for $633 million. In the weeks leading up to the deal, Tribune journalists pleaded for anyone else to purchase the company, fearing deep cuts once Alden took the reins. According to an article on the Chicago Tribune website, 2 days after the purchase was completed, the hedge fund began offering buyouts to non-union newsroom employees. Buyouts are typically the last option for an employee to leave a company voluntarily and receive severance. Local journalist James Farr has won the Voter Education Award from the Alliance for Community Media Foundation for his program, The Conversation Live, as part of the 2021 Hometown Media Awards. Farr created the program in September of 2017 and has produced more than 375 episodes. The show consists of interviews with city officials, political candidates, activists, attorneys, and other community leaders. In a press release, Farr said, "This award is a win for all of Pasadena, for Pasadena Media, and the Pasadena Media Foundation. It is a clarion call for why it is paramount that we save local news. Producing programming that my peers felt was the best in the nation out of over 1,000 submissions was humbling." The Rose Bowl Operating Committee is projected to require $26 million over the next 5 years to cover its growing debt obligations, and is in urgent need of revenue generators to chip away at its ailing financial situation. Brought to light in a special city council meeting, the shortfall is the most recent glimpse at how dire the financial picture looks for the iconic stadium and its grounds. For years, the city has been in a unique situation with the Rose Bowl, being monetarily self-sustaining, creating little need for its principal-owning entity to invest in its operations or maintenance. Most stadiums require such investments from their owners. Now, the city of Pasadena faces huge debt service payments to meet the stadium's obligations, increasing every year. City manager Steve Mermel has warned continuing servicing of the stadium's debt would deplete the city's reserve and general funds. Mayor Victor Gordo called an all-hands special meeting to set a course over the next few months to determine which projects to implement to raise revenue.
1. Applicants for this year's Tournament of Roses Queen and Royal Court must receive both doses of the Moderna or Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine or the single dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine before the initial interview period between September 11th and 13th, which makes sense. They'll be interacting with countless people at countless events. Pasadena wants to see its flagship event reopen this year, but we all want to make sure it's done safely. Applications for the Royal Court open Monday, July 26. In somewhat related news, in the lawsuit between the city and the tournament over who owns the Rose Bowl game, a judge recently ruled in the city's favor. 2, Pasadena workers making minimum wage at businesses with 25 employees or fewer began earning $15 per hour as part of the final mandated increase in the city's minimum wage ordinance. 3, Pasadena's water supply has once again met all drinking water quality standards set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the California State Water Resources Control Board, according to the newly released 2020 Consumer Confidence Report on water quality. Pasadena uses approximately 26 million gallons of water each day. In related news, Governor Newsom recently asked all Californians to cut their water use by 15% because 95% of the state is experiencing a severe drought. 4, negotiations between the city and local preservationists over a project in the Arroyo Seco have broken down. Pasadena Water and Power said they would not postpone certification of the environmental impact report and thus delay a project to repair and replace facilities within the Arroyo Seco Canyon area that were damaged or destroyed by the station fire of 2009. Preservationists say the project threatens trout that were recently discovered swimming in streams in the Arroyo. 5, the California State Legislature passed Assemblymember Chris Holden's AB 129, which includes $4 million for the Pasadena Central Library, $1.6 million for the Pasadena Playhouse, $1 million for a study of the Gold Line extension to the Hollywood Burbank Airport, and $250,000 for the Altadena Central Library District. The funds for the Pasadena Central Library will be used to fund a seismic retrofit study after the historic building was shuttered in May following an engineering analysis that revealed that the building does not meet seismic safety standards. State Senate policy committees have also passed 4 of Chris Holden's bills that focus on social justice. AB 105, the Upward Mobility Act, AB 229, which requires use of force training for private security, AB 349, which provides transportation contracts for disadvantaged communities, and AB 948, which calls for a real estate appraisal reform. 6, Pasadena Mayor Victor Gordo wrote a letter to State Senate Transportation Committee Chair Lena Gonzalez requesting a carve-out that would exclude the 710 stub from AB 512, which could potentially stall the collaborative effort of the city of Pasadena and Caltrans have undertaken towards relinquishment of the 710 stub back to the city. 7, the Pasadena Unified School District Board of Education unanimously approved the district's 2021 to 2022 fiscal year budget just hours before the new fiscal year was set to begin on July 1st. That budget will have to be revisited in October after the governor presents his budget. They submit a plan by September 30th for how it plans to use COVID relief-related funds. 8, community workshops about city council redistricting continue. A task force is currently meeting to explore how shifts in population might affect the borders of the 7 city council district. Every 10 years, cities with districts must conduct a redistricting process to ensure the proper balance of populations between all districts. The completion of the 2020 census prompted the process to take place in 2021. The remaining workshops, which are virtual and in person, are tonight at 7 p.m. for District 4, July 17th at 10 a.m. for District 7, July 20th at 6 p.m. for District 6, and August 5th at 6 p.m. for District 5. Learn more at cityofpasadena.net/redistricting. 9, the Pasadena Library has eliminated late fees for overdue books in an effort to make the library more accessible. Meanwhile, Pasadena Water and Power has begun collecting late fees again after suspending them during the pandemic to provide relief to customers. And 10, the city is trying to decide how best to spend the $52.6 million they received from the federal government as part of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act. The city has already received $26.3 million and will receive the remaining $26.3 million in June 2022. However, city officials aren't completely sure that they will receive that second installment. The city's finance director, Matthew Hawksworth, told city council that, quote, there's a growing concern across the country from mayors and cities covering every state that the second 50% payment could be clawed back by the federal government through legislative negotiations, end quote. That money can only be used for certain things, including responding to the public health emergency or its negative impacts, providing premium pay to essential workers during COVID-19 restrictions, covering the city for services it could not afford because of pandemic-related shortfalls in revenues, and/or for necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. The city will hold public workshops to get input from the community about where those dollars should be spent. Also, renewable energy professional John Doyle has made an early announcement that he's running for City Council District 4 in 2024, currently occupied by Councilmember Gene Masuda. In an interview with Pasadena Now, he said, quote, "The main reasons that I'm running are to get Pasadena Water and Power to accept clean energy, push environmental climate change initiatives, and to broaden the definition of safety," end quote. As time goes on, we're likely to see more and more candidates focusing on climate change, even local races. Meanwhile, next year's election will feature contests for City Council Districts 3, 5, and 7. The primary will be held June 7th, and the general election will be held November 8th, 2022. And finally, the gravestone of Altadena abolitionist Owen Brown will be reinstalled in the hills of Altadena within the next several months. The gravestone was originally lost in 2002 after a previous landowner rolled it down a hill, but it was found a decade later by a local hiker. Owen was the son of abolitionist John Brown, who led a failed slave uprising at Harper's Ferry, Virginia in 1859, widely cited as the start of the Civil War. Turning now to Pasadena's media landscape, let's review some of the changes that have occurred in the past few years. An Arizona-based company purchased the Pasadena Weekly, journalists at the Pasadena Star-News voted to unionize, and Cheryl Turner created the Pasadena Media Foundation in an effort to save local news, just to name a few examples. Local news is the backbone of every community, but the situation nationally is dire. We need more efforts to support the news, such as the Pasadena Media Foundation. Its mission is to build a sustainable financial future for Pasadena area news and information organizations, which are essential to democracy, to function, and to promote high-quality local journalism within the community. As noted on the foundation's website, quote, "News organizations across the nation have been decimated by the collapse of traditional business models brought on by the impact of digital technology and social media. The Pasadena area is no stranger to these market forces, with multiple news outlets recently eliminating editorial staff, shifting focus away from local news coverage, or shutting down entirely. Readers and advertisers have been drawn to other information sources, especially on the internet. As a result, many communities have turned into news deserts with little or no reporting. The foundation provides financial support to local journalists and outlets such as myself, James Farr and his Conversation Live show, Pasadena Now, the Pasadena Black Pages, and others. Visit savelocalnews.us to learn more. Let's patch in our guest now to explore these issues. Welcome to the show, Andre Coleman.
Hey, Justin, it's good to see you.
Andre is the managing editor of Pasadena Now and former deputy editor of Pasadena Weekly. He oversees daily assignments and the editorial direction of Pasadena Now. He has won several awards for news writing and investigative reporting from the Los Angeles Press Club and the California News Publishers Association. Last year, he was an LA Press Club Journalist of the Year finalist for his coverage of the ATF investigation and an eventual arrest and conviction of former Pasadena police officer Vaskin Gordikian. Andre grew up in Altadena and started his career as a sports writer with the Pasadena Star-News. He spent nearly 20 years with the Pasadena Weekly, which is where he and I met. All the way back in January 2005, I was a journalism student at Pasadena City College, and I emailed Andre about interning at the paper. He told me to come by the newsroom where he and the editor, Kevin Urich, taught me everything I know about journalism, gave me opportunities to be published right away. We had many great years covering the city together, but unfortunately the paper was purchased by an Arizona-based company called Times New Media in 2019, and the paper has changed since then. So Andre, can you walk us through what happened after the new company took over the Pasadena Weekly?
Well, starting at the beginning, the very first day, all we were told, editorial staff, and this happens all the time, is that there was going to be a meeting. It was a Wednesday, that there was going to be a meeting on a Wednesday, which really set everybody back because, as you know, that's publishing day, that's deadline day. So that's hectic crazy. So we're all going, so they want us to stop putting the paper out to have a meeting. And people were speculating it was about best of, and everybody was kind of speculating. And finally somebody said, "I think we've been sold." And that sent ice through everybody's blood instantly. So when these guys come in, I just kind of hung out in the back, to be honest with you, listening to them. But I remember when the meeting started, all of a sudden I saw all these faces I had never seen before. And I knew instantly that we had been sold. And in that meeting, we were told nobody's losing their job. And a month later, a whole lot of people lost their job, is what it came down to. And I guess there were some things that worked for the better. I mean, they put us in a nice building, but that nice building wasn't in Pasadena.
Right.
They brought in the Argonaut and Downtown News to that office also, which was, it brought Joe Pisecki back into the same building, which was kind of cool. But it was just over. I mean, I think I was there, the new building, 2 weeks when I just knew it was time for me to go, kind of thing. And slowly but surely, I came to a realization that I had to go, just for that sake, and to continue, my career. What I built had ended. What I built with you and Kevin and Carl was gone. It was over. Yeah. Carl was gone. That didn't sit well with me, to be quite honest. Honestly, Carl was fired, and John Sollenberg was fired. That didn't sit well with me either. So now I was already a deputy editor doing the job of two people, because when Joe Pisecki was a deputy editor, he had a city reporter, which was me. When I became a deputy editor, they never hired a city reporter. And now I'm doing calendar, the art stuff that Carl used to do, and the deputy editor stuff. And then Kevin was doing more writing. He had to wear another hat also. So either one of us, speaking for myself, I wasn't happy to be doing the back end work.
Yeah, and they, essentially stopped paying freelancers that have been there for years. They cut out the political cartoons.
Well, that's the very last thing. That's the very last thing that happened before I gave notice. Cut out the political But the freelancer thing, that was a huge bone of contention for me, and one that I talked about in my exit interview out the door, because if you remember, you were one of those freelancers. And guess who all those freelancers dealt with when their checks weren't selling? The deputy editor. So I was the guy saying what they were telling me. They were saying, hey, well, we're going to mail out the checks next week. So tell everybody, hey, your check's going to be mailed out next week. So guess who then people were looking at like sideways, like they were lying to? They didn't know what that was me. So I had bought you into the company. I had bought probably 5 or 6 freelancers into the company. And so, my thing was I finally just went to them and said, look, I'm not telling anybody else anything about this money because you guys are making me out to be lying. And that's not cool with me. So you guys figure out what you're doing and then you guys deal with it. Eventually it happened. But when I left, the thing to them was, because they said, anytime you want to come back, you're welcome. My thing was, look, you guys got to pay my free life. This is not cool. It's not cool for you to work. And then Carl wasn't even allowed to. I don't know, to this day, I don't know what that was about. Carl and I kid Carl a lot, and I still do. I talked to him earlier this week. Carl's a really good friend of mine. Carl's like a brother, I'll be honest. And it really, really was not cool to fire him and then to declare that, he can't even write for the paper. I didn't get that.
Yeah. And then looking at the bigger picture of the media landscape of Pasadena, I mean, it sort of leaves something to be desired. I mean, Pasadena Now does a decent job. There's Colorado Boulevard, there's Pasadena Black Pages, Pasadena Journal, Outlook, Independent, all pretty small publications. The Star News has like one reporter covering Pasadena, and then that's pretty much it. So I know news deserts aren't unique to this city, but I mean, this city deserves a robust, thorough field of media outlets. When's that going to happen?
This city, when you consider what we were 10 years ago, when the Weekly and the Star News both had great coverage at that point every day.
Yeah.
I mean, the Weekly, I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot. The Weekly regularly broke stories, won awards, and was a major source of news across the region.
Yeah. We
turned every national story. I don't care if it was immigration. I don't care if it was the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. We made those local stories, and you were a big part of that. You yourself, when everybody was talking about Joan Williams riding that float in the Rose Parade, that's a story you broke. That came out of the Weekly, and that went around the world. That That's how good we were. So, yes, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. A desert, as far as reporting goes here, is unique based on what we've had in time. And we wouldn't be here right now if PW had given me my money and left me in Urich alone. We would probably still be there doing what we did for all that time, and they could have probably given us more resources. Yeah. Especially with Paiseki back in the office, and if Carl had gotten a little bit more, some more cash in his pocket, we could have done a lot of great things. But we move on, and Pasadena has room for a great printed product. There is great, and it deserves the money.
Absolutely. And so last month, I reported that the journalists at the Star News and some other daily newspapers voted to unionize. As you know, Kevin Urich led a valiant effort to unionize the Star News newsroom when he worked there in the 90s. So that's finally happened. What are your thoughts on that? How will that impact the paper?
I'm going to tell you what I hope it does. I don't know how it's going to impact it, but I'll tell you what I hope it does. I hope it saves jobs. If I was working there, what I would want is you give me another reporter to cover Pasadena, not just one, because any Pasadena daily should have Pasadena stories in them every day. Now, you know what? Bradley Vermont was a very, very good reporter. I have a lot of respect for what Bradley did. The problem is, and he and I talked a little bit more right before he left, problem was that he was flying solo too. And flying solo during that pandemic, those months when everybody was home, I remember the day, Justin, when they started closing things down. Pasadena Now, we did 31 stories that day. I was counting how many we were doing as we were going. If you were the sole reporter at the SN, and everybody had to do stuff online, minute to minute. How many cases? How many deaths? What are they closing now? City government closed. One person can't carry that load.
Right.
That's complete. I felt bad for the guy. One person can't carry that load. I'm going to tell you what I tell reporters now. Because there was a point when Brian Charles was at the Star News and guys before him, when the Weekly and the Star News competed, we were competitive. We got along, but we were competitive. Now, when guys show up and they think they're going to compete and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and I'm competing against you and all that mess, I tell them, next time you get paid, look at your paycheck. That's what you're competing against. You don't own it. You don't own it. I know, I've been there. You're still going to put food on the table, and they're telling you to compete with me? For what? I'm not keeping a dime out of your pocket. That's where you need to look at and say, my problem is in the newsroom, not outside the at all.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue. So what I'd like to see them do is protect jobs, hire some more reporters that are ready, hitting the ground running to cover Pasadena, because I think Pasadena Now, I wish the Pasadena Weekly, the Independent, would benefit from healthy competition.
Yeah.
And I think the readers, the viewers, whatever you want to call them in Pasadena, they are fortunate when they have a lot of news sources, a lot of places where they can go.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the future of Pasadena Now. Where do you want the outlet to go in the coming months?
When I got to Pasadena Now, if you go back, and I've looked back at it one time actually on the anniversary of when I was hired, I said that we were going to do a deep dive into City Hall. And we have successfully, I feel like, done that. I mean, before we kicked it in a high gear, nobody was covering the design. Nobody was covering tech. Everybody covered City Council, public safety. Now, everything in those hallowed halls is being covered to some degree. Whether it's a preview story saying, hey, this is what's going to happen, or it's coverage saying this is just what happened, everything's getting covered. We're even covering consent calendar, which is really unheard of. You know what? I'd like us to take it a step further, to go even further. I don't know if you realize, but we now do council coverage the same night the council happens. So we update soon as like something's approved or denied, we usually get a story up within 5 minutes. We're usually writing as counsel goes on. So I'd still like us to see us be a little tighter. The Sunday read is going well. I'd like to see more Sunday read pieces. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start launching. I've got about 5 investigative pieces on my desk that are being prepped that we're going to start launching. So we're going to kick it up another notch. And we're kind of playing around with what can we do with audio and video too. You know, how can we deliver news in that format successfully? It's kind of what we've been discussing.
Yeah, we got 30 seconds left. Tell me about your audio project, Blackbirds.
Oh man, Blackbirds has been going great. 3 episodes. www. Can I say the website?
Sure.
www.blackbirdsaudio.com. 3 websites. It's one family living in Jim Crow. I wanted to do during the pandemic. I just wanted to do something creative. I have a friend that's an actor, and she got me some amazing talent. Everybody on there has done real stuff. I couldn't do it during the pandemic, so they all agreed to lend their voice to this project. And it's really a hard look at race in America, starting in the Jim Crow era, and then it's going to slowly come forward, and we've already agreed to do another season, which you and I talked about. I had a couple of conditions, those conditions were met. We're going to do another season, and then slowly kind of see how far we can go with this. It's going great, man. I mean, it's finding its audience. When this started, I don't want to take up too much time. My whole point was if I could get maybe 20 people to listen a day, that would be great, just for something with audience that nobody's ever heard of. Mm-hmm. We're doing way more than that every day already, and I'm still struggling to market it. So it's going well. It's going really, really good.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's a great listen. Well, Andre, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you providing your insights on this.
Hey, it's always good to be with you, Justin. You're doing a great job on News Wrap, too. I'm glad to see you doing it. So,
thanks, man.
All right.
Take care. Before we go, I'd like to introduce a new segment, This Month in Pasadena History. It was on July 10th, 1999, when the U.S. women's soccer team won the World Cup, beating China 5-4 on penalty kicks after 2 hours of scoreless play at the Rose Bowl. U.S. player Brandi Chastain scored the final goal to put the U.S. team over the top, inspiring legions of young girls and boys playing soccer across the country. It was a watershed moment for women's sports. After scoring the winning penalty kick, Chastain slid onto her knees in triumph and ripped off her jersey, revealing her sports bra. It was a moment seen and dissected around the world. And the ensuing controversy highlighted the double standard facing female athletes. On July 10th, 2019, the 20th anniversary of that 1999 World Cup final, the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation installed a bronze statue of Chastain's iconic moment, depicting her on her knees, clutching her derobed jersey with a look of pure exultation on her face. The statue is located in front of the stadium's main entrance, near where countless youth soccer games take place, ensuring that the moment will continue to inspire new generations of soccer players. Chastain herself attended the statue's unveiling. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of News Wrap Local. I'm Justin Chapman signing off. Tune in every third Friday of the month at 5 p.m. You can watch it on Channel 32 on Charter Spectrum, Channel 99 on AT&T Uverse, YouTube, Facebook, and the Pasadena Media streaming app on Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and Roku. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Sign up for my monthly email newsletter to get updates on my work by visiting justinchapman.substack.com/subscribe. See you again next month.